wash it. Oh yeah.
I mean,
it's pretty fun.
strawberry Starbucks, isn't it? Or Starbucks, isn't it?
No, I need the link. Just tell me.
It was part of it was funny. Part of it was actually Bill making it look like part of it was actually very. Do you use it? Sometimes we share. If I need it, I'll ask you.
Here's one. He can. I rarely use it, so he needs it. He can use it.
Of course, yeah.
Chief gave us some.
I like it.
You haven't done your homework.
We do, but I saw him last night.
This whole thing, that shouldn't say.
Already knew
Good.
and staff said this one, so we're gonna. I told them there.
I'm sure this is the highlight of your document.
So you have no life, right? Just like me.
What house do we want? House do we want?
He's good.
I thought I like it.
Yes. Thought I did. I'm not sure. She's asking.
Expected.
He's here. He's all set up. He's had a rough day at school.
Had a rough day at work, so.
Got a young man here who's got a legal pledge.
Okay. He's a shark. What? Shenandoah shark? You can come up here. Come on up here.
Are you gonna let him gavel?
I might. I think that's actually a very good idea. You don't ever let me gavel.
I was gonna say we never get a gavel. We don't get a legal pledge.
I'm not Boy Scouts.
What's your name, buddy? Zeke. Nice to meet you, Zeke. Hold on about 2 seconds, okay?
Just quite.
What's today? 26. Pull this up. Grab a seat.
Oh, how cute.
Okay, here's what I need you to read for me. Where it says notice, let me read till it says to follow out there. I need you to bang on that thing 3 times. Come on, you got this.
Right now?
Yep.
Notice is hereby given that a meeting of the Shenandoah City Council will be held on Wednesday, September 26, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the City of Shenandoah Municipal Complex, 29955 I-45 North, Shenandoah, Texas, for the purpose of considering the following.
Good job.
Awesome.
All right, so we'll call the meeting to order, call the roll, notice everybody's here. We're going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Zeke is going to lead us in that, and then afterwards I'll say a quick invocation. And if you'd like to say stand with me, that'd be great. So let's, if you'll lead us off, sir. Yep, you betcha.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Dear Lord, we come before you tonight, and we just want to say thank you for all of these residents, our strategic partners, our staff.
fine young men like Zeke who care enough about this community to come together and try to make it a better place to work, to live, and to worship. We hope that your hand is on us tonight as we make our way through this agenda, and we hope that everything we do honors you. We use your guidance and your wisdom to make our way through this agenda and do the best job we can for the citizens of Shenandoah. Pray these things in your son's name, and all God's people said, Amen. Let's give a big hand for Jesus.
Thank you, Zeke.
Okay, well, once again, thank everybody for coming tonight, and for all the folks watching on YouTube, y'all as well. We are going to move into item 5, which is Citizens Forum, and I had some folks signed up to speak. See if I can find them. So I had Miss Julia Hepburn, and residents are invited to approach the podium, speak for 3 minutes, and if you would please state your name for the record. Ms. Hepburn.
Hi, I'm Julia Hepburn. I live at 28903 Enchanted Drive. And I just am concerned, again, about this underpass, overpass. And I see that on the agenda that the Woodlands Township Board of Directors is supposed to be here and give us a presentation. Correct? On number 7? Correct?
We can't deliberate with you, Ms. Hepburn.
Oh.
But we hear your comments.
Anyway, I just am concerned because I know that when this first came through, according to the impact, the mayor said that it was back in May and there was only one resident here. And so it kind of got voted and discussed without really anybody knowing about it. But then it was brought through at the town hall meeting, and Joseph was trying to get it presented and everything. And then the mayor came from the hospital and thought he needed to help Joseph. So he kind of took the meeting over, and still there were standing room only. And the consensus was that, you know, as far as the residents of Shenandoah, they weren't really keen on this idea at all. I understand it's not our money. I understand it's at the very border of our city, but it affects our city in multiple ways. I mean, you live there off of Grogan's Mill. Maybe it doesn't affect you directly, but there are people that live right there that I feel like, you know, there goes their property value. I understand the Woodlands doesn't want it where they initially built the roads for it there at Lake Woodlands because it's going to infringe on their tax base. So now they're moving it to close to our city. So now it's going to infringe on us. And I just feel like that when the citizens, the residents of Shenandoah speak, that it would be nice, I guess, to have the backing of somebody instead of, you know, I understand, you know, at the town hall meeting, Mr. Fletcher's wife stood up and said, okay, we need to go to the commissioner's court. Residents went there, and, you know, after it was all said and done, they felt like they were belittled in front of everybody. Not only that, this is a big financial burden. I understand it doesn't fall on us, but you're in the financial field. I believe Ron is too. I'm not sure. But to have that kind of money on this type of project just seems unreal. But thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hepburn. We will move to Ms. McGill.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lorena Perez McGill, and I am running for the Texas House of Representatives for District 15. At these times of uncertainty, when there is so much polarization, I am running because I do believe that we need to govern based on bipartisanship and on talking to each other. I am running because I do believe that we have issues in this district that we could better address by talking to each other than by posturing or by yelling at each other. I am actually running on 3 major platforms, and the 3 issues on my platform are public education, a stronger public education, not a weaker public education. The second one, it has to do with flood mitigation and better infrastructure, because since my family and I moved here in 2015, we almost have flooded 3 times, and I think that that is just 3 times too much. And the third one is actually to address uncompensated care, because as many of you know, the state of Texas lags, and it is at the bottom of the list in the United States in terms of people who do not have health coverage. And we are all paying the consequences in this district, in which we have 5 hospitals, and they are all private hospitals. And I just wanted to introduce myself to all of you, and also to all of you present here. I am running a campaign based on issues, because those issues and those challenges are the ones that I want to see addressed in Austin. And one of those issues, as I mentioned, is public education. And as part of my campaign, we're going to be showing a documentary called Backpack Full of Cash, which talks about the importance of public education in the United States and where public education is headed in the United States if we continue in the direction in which it is going. It is going to be showing at the South County Community Center on Wednesday, October 17th. And the added benefit is that right after we show the documentary, we're going to have a lively discussion with local teachers, with local people who work in Conroe ISD and at the state level as well, talking about the state of public education in Texas. I hope that you come with me and that you join us in the discussion. And once again, I'm going to leave some of this information in the back, if you guys allow me, so that if you guys want any of the information, you can have it. Once again, Lorena Perez McGill, and I am running for the Texas House of Representatives for District 15. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, we may have another speaker.
We have a second citizens forum.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move into item 6, which is council inquiry. And I put a council inquiry here just because oftentimes there are things that we need to present and maybe some sort of fact-based statement, not deliberation, but a fact-based statement by the council members. And oftentimes, because the meetings last a little longer, because we have a big agenda, then not everybody is around to hear whatever news it is that council needs to give at that time. So if you don't have anything specific that has to go right here, I'd still rather wait until the end to give our typical council inquiry. But if there's something pressing that's important, then absolutely, this gives us an opportunity to share that information at the beginning of the meeting, and hopefully as many residents as possible get a chance to hear it. So with that, does anybody have anything that they would like to share right now during council inquiry? Perfect. Okay, well with that, we will move to item 7, which is update from the Woodlands Township Board of Directors meeting and presentation on Research Forest Underpass. This is a presentation only. And I will start this off. So Ms. Hepburn had mentioned this particular item, and I think unfortunately the way it's worded makes it look like there was somebody from the Woodlands Board of Directors that was going to be here. I apologize for that. We tried to get a representative from BGE, which was the Brown and Gay. Oh, is mine. I'm going to mess this up. You know that, right? Which one do I push? This one? This one. So that goes in. Okay, perfect. Long story short, this was the presentation that was given at the Woodlands Township Board of Directors meeting last week, and I thought that it would be relevant to bring here and share with our residents as well. We'll have a couple of other presentations after this one, all relating to the Research Forest Underpass, or proposed Research Forest Underpass is what it should say. Okay, so, and I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly, and I'm not going to get near into the detail that the engineers did because, quite frankly, I'm not an engineer. And this will be available, Kathy, on our website after tonight?
We can put it on the website if you want.
We will put this on the website after tonight, so don't feel like you have to copy it screen for screen if you don't want to. Okay, so the first thing this starts off with is it talks about different levels of service. We've talked about this a couple of different times, A through F. Just like grade school, Fs aren't good, As are pretty good. It talks about how long the delay is in terms of seconds. And by the way, an F starts at 85, but it can go all the way up to infinity, I guess. And in some cases, later in the slide, I think it shows this, but I know they talked about it. Some of these intersections were up in the 500 and 600 second delay. So it may look like it's only 85 seconds because it's an F, but the reality of it is there's nothing worse than an F, I guess I should say. So this shows the existing conditions, and this is for Research Forest and Grogan's Mill, and it's also for Lake Woodlands and Grogan's Mill. You see each diagram here. Level of service for Lake Woodlands and Grogan's Mill are C's and D's, and it's varying levels of service for Research Forest and Grogan's Mill, anywhere down from an F, several D's obviously. There are actually a couple of B's. Maybe just because it's a bigger intersection and has more points. It talks about traffic count and what HGAC projects the traffic count to be as we move forward. So don't worry as much about the 2040. I think that's pretty far out and things could change. But if you look at the 2022, you look at Research Forest and Grogan's Mill, could have 78,000 people moving through. So these were the different, and this is a slide I really wanted to show the residents tonight. These were all the different possibilities that the RUD, because remember the RUD is the sponsor of this project, so the Road Utility District is who's sponsoring this product. The county, Precinct 3, will be picking up a portion of it. Obviously other interested parties are the Woodlands Township and Shenandoah, quite frankly. So, and TxDOT for that matter. So number one, no build. That was one alternative. Not, obviously not the alternative they chose because they want to do something with the intersection. Two is an at-grade widening. So in other words, widen the roads, Research Forest, widen Grogan's Mill. That also was ruled out because it doesn't score. Three, underpass, we've talked about quite a bit. Four, a single intersection, which we've talked about. That's the T intersection that I brought up before. Five, roundabouts, 2 or 3 lane traffic circle, which I think is a terrible idea, but I guess that was looked at. Number 6 is important to notice, and I told y'all this several times before, but Grogan's Mill grade separation and direct connectors. So what that means is an overpass on Grogan's Mill going over Research Forest with direct connectors back down to Research Forest. Some different types of direct connectors, and then what's called a SPUI, or a single point urban intersection, which is essentially like an underpass. It's just a single intersection on top of that where they crisscross each other. If you've never seen one, they're kind of interesting. And apparently they work pretty well, they're just very expensive. So I obviously was very worried about number 6, which is a Grogan's Mill grade separation and direct connectors. So this shows a no build by the year 2022, what the traffic will score in each intersection. And as you can see, we're at F's and in some cases E's and D's. You have a few C's on there. So obviously everybody knows something has to happen. This is what scores at grade widening. Doesn't get much better. You still have D's and F's for Research Forest and Grogan's. This is the underpass. And if you'll notice, an underpass scores A's on Research Forest, B's on Grogan's Mill. This goes through the levels of service again, and over on the far right it gets into cost approximations. And yes, the underpass on this does show $24 million. That's a different number than what I was previously given, and we'll talk about that later. I didn't make up the $14 million. I didn't make up the $24 million. This particular presentation shows $24 million as the cost for the underpass. None of that $24 million comes from the city of Shenandoah, by the way. This would be a conceptual diagram of the, I wish we could, no way to enlarge that, huh?
Not directly in the slide.
Okay, that's all right, no worries. So this is a conceptual rendering of what the underpass would look like. And I think a couple of key points here that are worth noting that just shows you how well the RUD was willing to work with us. This came back and forth a couple of times before the presentation. This doesn't mean this is the final engineering plat, by the way. But a couple of the things they were very willing to be cognizant about was on the northwest corner of Grogan's Mill and Research Forest, they added the dedicated right-hand turn lane, which it was in the first rendering, a go straight or right-hand turn lane, which gave Grogan's Mill 3 lanes and still didn't give the residents of Shenandoah a dedicated right-hand turn lane. So this particular diagram does. On the northeast corner, there's also a dedicated right-hand turn lane turning onto Grogan's Mill going north from Research Forest. Down on the southeast corner of the Grogan's Mill Research Forest intersection, there are 2 right-hand turn lanes with additional storage on that right-hand turn lane to try to get some of that traffic off of the Grogan's Mill portion that goes straight so that Shenandoah residents can continue straight and get back into the city, and it moves that traffic through that intersection quicker. I think the point, not to mention, they connected our parks and pathways sidewalks so that our pedestrians and our bicyclers can still utilize this intersection. So I think the point of this is they're trying to make this intersection as residential friendly as possible and work with the city so that our residents are gaining something out of this and are impacted as little as possible. I think I moved a slide or something. Oh, there we go. These are some of the safety benefits, and I have no idea how to read this thing, but I know that apparently it's really bad right now and it'll be really good later. Right now that's a technical term. Right now it's the single worst intersection in the Woodlands, and it's the second worst in Montgomery County, if I remember correctly. So anything we can do to make that intersection safer would be a benefit. These are the cost estimates. Again, total cost $24 million for the underpass. I think what's important to note there is you've got most of this money is coming from either HGAC or TxDOT or the RUD. Very little is coming from Montgomery County Precinct 3, and none of it is coming from the city of Shenandoah. And this just shows some of the other projects in the area, the I-45 Research Forest, Tamina Road corridor that we've been talking about, obviously the David Memorial Extension, and then obviously the Research Forest underpass. These are different resolutions of support. The RUD, Montgomery County Precinct 3, the City of Shenandoah, Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce. And that's the end of the presentation. I told you we were going to spend a long time on it. I wanted you to see it. It'll be up on our website. Feel free to go look at it. We did not create this presentation. This was not a City of Shenandoah presentation. But after the city administrator and I, Kathy, we saw this at the Woodlands Township meeting, I thought it appropriate to share with the residents. A couple of things that we need to talk about. The overpass at Grogan's Mill, which you just saw, was one of the options that the RUD was considering. Remember, this is the RUD's money. The RUD is sponsoring this. They get to pick where they spend it. And one of their options was an overpass on Grogan's Mill. Now, why am I so opposed to an overpass on Grogan's Mill? I think everybody in the room is opposed to an overpass on Grogan's Mill. I'm not opposed to an underpass on Research Forest, mostly because, sorry about that, in the Southtown Mobility Study, which was voted on by this council in September of 2015, there is a Research Forest underpass. And in fact, in the long-term plans for 2021, if I can find the page, I'll read it to you. Very simply, Research Forest Drive. Construct an underpass at Research Forest at Grogan's Mill. Estimated cost, $14.3 million. That's where I got the $14 million, by the way. There's actually, in the study, there's actually a picture, if I can find it, here we go. There's a picture of said underpass. This was voted on unanimously by the City Council at the time under the direction of Mayor Gary Watts with Ms. Jean Teague sitting on council, who were both adamantly opposed to an underpass and yet voted on this Southtown Mobility Study in a 5-0 vote, which included an underpass at Research Forest. Now, here's where I start getting really worried. If we look at Grogan's Mill, and we're going to have a couple more presentations and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but what really concerns me about this Southtown Mobility Study that we approved on a 5-0 vote was Grogan's Mill, widen Grogan's Mill Road from 4 to 6 lanes between the Woodlands Parkway and Sawdust. Widen Grogan's Mill from 2 to 4 lanes from Research Forest to Vision Park. Let that sink in for a minute. Page 93 of the South County Mobility Study. Widen Grogan's Mill from 2 to 4 lanes from Research Forest to Vision Park. Let's talk a little bit about TxDOT. On page 94, new I-45 overpasses. Construct 2 new main lane overpasses, U-turn ramps at IH-45 and Vision Park Drive / Shenandoah Park Drive, and at IH-45 and Nursery Road Sagewood Drive, which I'll be honest, I don't even know where that is. So let's picture this mentally. You're coming north or south on I-45. There's an overpass at Vision Park and Shenandoah Drive. You exit said overpass. You get on Vision Park, which is a 4-lane road. You go through what used to be the roundabout because we have an easement agreement with the county that if Grogan's Mill ever gets turned into 4 lanes, we will take our roundabout out. So you go through the roundabout, which is no longer there, into a 4-lane Grogan's Mill, down south, over an overpass, Grogan's Mill and Research Forest. You hit your first light at Hughes Landing Boulevard. Or if you take a dedicated right-hand turn lane and decide to go west into the Woodlands, you hit your first light at the Exxon station. Nobody would ever exit Research Forest again. Why would you? Why would you exit Research Forest and have to go through a light at Holly Hill, a light at Six Pines, a light at Pinecroft, and a light at Research Forest now because there's an overpass at Grogan's Mill, so there's a light at Research Forest for that turning traffic to be able to turn. So why would you ever go down Research Forest and go through 4 red lights when you could go down Grogan's Mill and not hit a single red light until you got to Hughes Landing Boulevard? I'll do whatever it takes to keep that from happening, and I've told y'all that from the get-go. I cannot believe that we voted for this South County Mobility Study and approved this on a 5-0 vote. It floors me that we didn't have any better vision than that, no pun intended, that this was what we said would be okay in what is figured the long-term recommendations starting at 6 years. This was 2015. So by 2021, that could have been a reality we were dealing with. Thankfully, last night at Commissioner's Court, or yesterday at Commissioner's Court, Commissioner Nowak and Commissioner Riley, who I wish Commissioner Riley could have been here, and he may be here later, both agreed to support a resolution of support, keeping Grogan's Mill 2 lanes and never letting it expand beyond 4 lanes. That was said in open meeting. It's in the minutes. It's on video. You can go back and go watch it. They are in support of keeping Grogan's Mill 2 lanes. It's a residential road. It needs to stay that way. So, you know, this council's been called out a lot for this Research Forest underpass. I hope now it's a little bit clearer as to how we got to where we are. We've got a couple more presentations. We've got a very good presentation by Blyle. I think we're going to do next. And then Councilman Beavers, you've got a presentation after Blyle?
Short one.
A short one.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. And with that, we'll pass the baton to Derek then, I guess.
Good luck.
Derek, are you on a timer?
Yeah, we're stuck. Give me a second.
Make it quick, Derek.
No rush.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. This presentation kind of piggybacks off of the slideshow that the Mayor went through. And you know, basically, I won't talk anymore about the intersection at Grogan's Mill and Research Forest, but we're talking about other projects that kind of are intertwined with that project as well. that the city is currently discussing with several different entities. And part of this presentation is, why don't you just go build the road, and it'll kind of explain some of the challenges we have in working through these projects. So Blisle has been supporting city staff to meet with these several different entities. The main projects we have are the David Memorial Extension to the north up to 242. We have the widening of Tamina Road east of David Memorial. And then we have basically kind of the whole section between I-45 and David Memorial on Tamina there, where there's intersection improvements, median improvements, things like that. So, one more quick thing, just always want to mention the big blue triangle there is the pond we've talked about extensively as far as trying to alleviate some of the drainage concerns in the area. So this is a map of the area of Shenandoah and where the precinct boundaries are. So I don't know, some people may not know this, but all three precincts are in the city of Shenandoah, and they all actually intersect right at the intersection of I-45 and Research Forest. So right off the bat at that intersection, you're going to deal with three different commissioners at the county, Commissioner Riley in the northwest, Commissioner Nowak in the southwest, and then Clark is the whole section on the east side. So let's talk about the David Memorial Extension first. So you see three colors there. The reason there's three colors is we're basically in three different political boundaries. The green section on the bottom is up to the city limits for the city of Shenandoah. The magenta or purple section in the middle is the Montgomery County Precinct 4, which is Commissioner Clark. And then the north part is actually in the city of Conroe. So those are the distances on the side there. The intent is to try to get all these jurisdictions together and try to have a consistent project where we would have basically a two-way, four-lane road that connects all the way to 242. And then, again, of course, up at 242, you have TxDOT to work with at that intersection. So, potential partners, the city, county, Precinct 4, City of Conroe, we've mentioned. There's also property owners there that we've met with and talked to that have interest, the Metro Park Square, Houston Methodist, and then Conroe ISD also has a lot of interest because that would be a major bus route to some of their schools up on 242, existing schools as well as new schools that they're planning in that area. So estimated cost for the remainder of this extension is $7 to $9 million. The reason for the range is there's some unknowns like wetlands mitigation and drainage situations that we'll have to deal with that may affect those costs. So about a mile of roadway, and so you see we have approximately half of that funding that we may have available. I think anybody that could participate in this project has said that's with the caveat that we actually have a road all the way to 242. So obviously nobody wants to build a piece of road going to nowhere or out in the middle of nowhere. So one consideration is, with the initial funding, maybe some planning, we could submit to HGAC for the additional funding. Currently, the only project from Montgomery County that's on the books for HGAC is the intersection at Research Forest and Grogan's. So not a lot of representation from Montgomery County. I think for that reason it may be a project that would be well received at HGAC. The slide here says 2019. We've since learned that there's a current submittal in October of this year, 2018, and then they will actually not have another submittal for 2 to 3 years after that. So another thing to consider is if we hurry, maybe we can get something at least preliminary into HGAC now to basically get it on the books and have it as a bookmark for a future submittal, if that's something that council would want to consider. So Tamina Road widening is a county project. There's money from the, I think it's 2015 bonds from County Precinct 4 to widen east of David Memorial to basically a 5 lanes to 4 lanes with the continuous left turn lane. That would go all the way across the railroad tracks to the roadway on the other side there in Tamina. And they have selected an engineer for that project. And they've started preliminary design. The city staff and Blau have already been in coordination with them as far as the intersection at David Memorial and Tamina, as well as the parts that are in the city east of that, to try to make sure we coordinate with them. So here's a picture of the widening. The black lines are the city limits. The ideal situation would be to continue the raised medians and sidewalks within the city limits, and then the county would likely go to a asphalt 5-lane continuous turn lane to the east of that. So this is for a Research Forest Tamina Road intersection. And this is actually at I-45, so probably I-45 should be included in that title there. But again, potential partners, all 3 precincts are at that intersection. Obviously, it's in the city of Shenandoah, and then TxDOT. So we've met with TxDOT, and there's basically 2 types of projects that we can do with TxDOT. One we will call it minor projects, which are projects that we can quickly get through their system, don't have to have any type of funding agreement with TxDOT, and be able to hopefully make those smaller improvements more quickly with local funding. And then the more major would be, I'll talk about it in a minute, but the widening of lanes and things like that at that intersection, which TxDOT, with that major improvement within their right-of-way, require much more extensive review, environmental studies, funding agreements, things like that, that would extend the process. So minor improvements that we could attack more quickly. These are a couple of them at the intersection. The U-turn coming southbound to northbound at the intersection there. The proposed improvement there would be to take the northbound side of that and give it a dedicated lane, and also delineate it. Basically have a curve or delineators along that that exit from the U-turn. That would do 2 things. It would basically tell people that they have a lane there that they can continue to move, as well as it would prevent people from trying to cut across 3 lanes of traffic to try to get into that first driveway on into the Home Depot there. And then the purple area on the southwest corner there, that's extending the turn lane going eastbound to southbound on I-45 there. So this is just a more detailed picture of kind of what we're talking about. It's a little hard to see with the yellow lines, but the same 2 projects. You'd see how we would stripe and extend that lane for the U-turn. And then there's also a project of trying to extend the U-turn going southbound, sorry, not U-turn, right turn lane going southbound and going west from 45 to Research. That would actually, because it's in the TxDOT right-of-way, would have to be part of a longer, bigger project. The reason the U-turn might be able to be done now is we've talked to the local area TxDOT office, and they may be willing to make that more of a maintenance project, and actually have verbally proposed to use their own funding through their maintenance department to get that done. So the larger project would include basically trying to increase the number of lanes going along Research and Tamina underneath the road there. So we did do a traffic study. What that does is it actually allows us, instead of having on either side coming out of the east-west direction, having turn and through lanes that are combined, we'd be able to have dedicated left turn and dedicated through lanes. So with that traffic analysis, you know, the existing condition of the system is an F, and you know, with the proposed improvements, it's still an F. So Mayor gave a good explanation of how that can be. Some of those turning movements are actually 300-400 seconds long. That's 5 or 6 minutes long. Even though we're reducing those movements by 1 to 2 minutes in a lot of areas, it's still going to be a level F condition at the intersection. There are a few movements that actually go from F to E, so we get under that 85-second threshold and get to E. But if you look at the intersection as a whole, it's still considered a cumulative F condition for level of service. So here's a picture of what we're talking about, the U-turn improvements, the turn lanes, how the movements would be. As you can see, east-west, you would have the dual turn and the dual throughs. So again, I think it's a significant improvement to, even if you're still at an F, to shave off a couple of minutes on your wait times on these turning movements. By having the 4 lanes and having dedicated lefts and dedicated throughs, you now no longer have the issue of if you're trying to get through in that middle lane, you're backed up behind somebody turning left. It also gives the county a lot more flexibility on how they handle their signalization. You'd have to work it out with TxDOT. There's even a possibility there to have, you know, like the blinking yellow left turns and things like that, so that you would have more efficiency in how you would handle that signalization. And so I think if you look at the reduced wait times, the benefits of those things compared to the costs, which we've estimated to be $1 to $1.5 million, that you're getting the benefit outweighing the costs. You would also see, I think, a lot more benefit. Again, when you do level of service, you're looking at peak hour traffic counts. So during times when it's not peak hour and you're just trying to get to the grocery store or whatever it may be, you're going to see a vast improvement in those conditions because of the dedicated turn lanes and because of the improved flexibility with the signalization. So that's it. We do have some other minor projects that I wanted to mention. They weren't necessarily highlighted on this, but going east from I-45 along Tamina Road, we've considered closing the median. It's turning into Home Depot. We've also talked about doing some striping and signal modifications at the intersection of David Memorial and Tamina to help improve. Kind of the same idea with maybe eliminating the left through type lanes and the right through type lanes that maybe cause that type of confusion and congestion. And there may be another one that I'm not thinking of right now, but so far the conversations have been positive, really good. We've had good reception. We've had a lot of people, especially on these smaller projects, county commissioners and TxDOT say they may be willing to handle the project, or at least you know, support the project financially, and pretty much everybody has been supportive from a just general you know, resolution type support. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
So just one, Tamina Road going over the railroad tracks, we're going to make that a railroad quiet zone qualified crossing, right?
So we met with Union Pacific about that. There are a lot of options to do that. I don't think it's part of the county's intention to do that.
That's Commissioner Clark?
Yeah, Commissioner Clark.
Okay.
So I don't think that was included in their original budget. Some of the issues with that, the easiest way to have a quiet zone is if you're able to install a raised median in the center, and the railroad has a requirement that that has to be a certain distance. Well, we don't have the distance we need on either side because you've got the T intersection on the east side, and on the west side you've got the same roads going up and down the railroad tracks. And so that lends to the equipment that the railroad company has to have at the intersection with the arms and the signalization and things like that to be, I think, like almost 4 times as much, to the tune of, I think it was almost $2 million. So the costs go way up when we don't have that flexibility with the intersection. There is another interesting idea with a quiet zone, is you can have a site-mounted horn instead of the train horn. And so, basically when the train comes, it signals to the horn at the intersection, which is a directed horn at a lot lower decibel, versus the train horn is a 360-degree high decibel horn. So that would be the cheapest option to try to achieve that. But so it's possible. I don't think that's included in what the county intends to do.
Not yet.
We will definitely, when we start having those preliminary meetings, stress that that's something of interest for that intersection.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate you.
Any other questions?
I have 2 questions. How do we get the submittal to HJC this year? Is it possible?
I think it's possible. Some of the things we have going for us, the portion in the city up to the city limits has a preliminary design done that the city paid for 1.5 years, 2 years ago. I think even if it's not 100%, we have all the studies done, all the surveys, all the preliminary design done. Just the fact that we have something in now rather than waiting 2 years. Besides that, you're looking at application paperwork and stuff. I think with the information we have now, we'd be able to put in a submittal that wouldn't be just I guess an embarrassing submittal. It would be something that we could at least show that we've had a lot of thought and process into this already. It's a serious project and we want to get on the books.
Yeah, I know that sometimes if projects that are approved end up not getting built, we'll go down the list and grab previously unapproved projects. So I think it makes sense to get that in. I certainly would support, if we can put a decent submittal together, doing it as quickly as possible.
Agreed.
My second question is, when can we expect some of those minor improvements to be done?
Yeah, I think the U-turn improvements with TxDOT, City Council and City staff have already approved us to put that submittal together and submit it to TxDOT. I think that was actually ready this week, but MDD board expressed that they would want to see it before it actually goes to TxDOT. So we're ready to submit that. I think as far as TxDOT's schedule is, it'll probably be maybe winter or early springtime next year that maybe it would happen. We did submit drawings for some of the signalization and striping that we've talked about at Tamina and David Memorial, which is something that could happen right away if that's something that Council or MDD would want to split out and go ahead and do. The conversations with Home Depot have been more positive than we expected. We've talked to the local area manager. He's actually very much in favor just because he has issues with backups in his parking lot and things like that. That's gone to the corporate regional offices. I know they're looking at it because I can see the email correspondence, but we haven't gotten any type of official response from them yet. So the turn lane on going eastbound from Research to southbound I-45, I know the Commissioner Nowak, that's in his precinct, has shown interest in possibly using some of his leftover funds from other bond projects to possibly fund that. Obviously he hasn't committed to that yet, but that's a possibility, as well as Commissioner Riley has talked about potentially doing the same thing for a right turn lane from Grogan's Mill going on to Research west. So all those projects, I think if we got serious about them, we could see a lot of progress very quickly.
Very good. Thank you, Derek.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
I want to stay on the agenda item if we can. Is it about the underpass? I think we've strayed pretty far from the underpass. Is the only thing I'm worried about.
It was about one of the projects he talked on as far as from southbound 45 onto Research Forest, westbound.
Yes.
So I know trying to get out of our neighborhood or neighborhoods onto the southbound feeder, that's often backed up during peak hours, almost to City Hall most of the time. Have we looked at putting delineators on Research Forest headed westbound?
Yeah, so the current striping of that intersection supports that. It's actually a solid white line going westbound, and that's a dedicated lane. So I know the city in the past has looked at this. They put more signs up trying to make sure that people in the cars know that you have your own lane, you can keep going. There's probably a duplicate reason of why you haven't seen a lot of improvement. One is, possibly if you put delineators up, you would have a more visual representation and prevent cars from actually going across that solid white line. I think the other reason is it's, even if you extend that some distance, people are still trying to get over left and turn onto into the Woodlands and the Medical Center and Pinecroft and Six Pines and things like that. And that's just going to be their habit to stop and wait until they have the opportunity to get over there.
I know that a previous council considered that, the delineators along Research Forest, and actually said no, they didn't want to do that.
That's correct.
I think that's something that I would support, take another look at in the near future.
So if I'm not mistaken, though, the plans for the lane expansion underneath I-45 eliminate that as a dedicated right-hand turn lane, right? It merges it, the lane coming across the 5th lane coming westbound on I-45 merges into that lane. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct. So what it actually does is, instead of having the center lane be a through left, now you have 2 throughs and 2 lefts. So you still only have 2 lanes going west onto Research, so you wouldn't have to remove the dedicated lane for the right turn.
Well, then, yeah, we definitely need to do something with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Way off topic.
Thank you.
Bill's over there twitching.
Would improving access to, and this gets out of our jurisdiction again, but it's a question, would improving access to lakefront actually help some of the traffic that we're seeing where they're cutting, going across 3 lanes, which is the problem with the delineators? Of course, this is the path that I take home every day. So so we're doing this, right?
Right.
But if we had the county or whomever work on making that more accessible, they would just stay on the access road and then make their right on lakefront instead of, I mean, that's just something to consider. That what's going on now while we're having an issue is they're backing up because they're sitting there waiting until they get an opening where we can go all the way across, so then they can turn left on Pinecroft.
Right.
Which is part of our congestion issues. I mean, let's be honest, that intersection right there, that's a piece of what's going on. We can say keep moving all you want to, but if at the end of the day what they're doing is they're going to sit there until they get an opening to go all the way across to Pinecroft,
right.
I think we need to think about like how the traffic and who's moving through there, and because that's what I see coming.
Yeah, I agree. I do think the delineators would eliminate some of the problem, but I wouldn't be surprised, like you're saying, if
they're just going to take it down a few feet before they
just go to the end of the delineators and stop anyways so they can get over.
So I think it's part of that traffic, but I think maybe considering some other possible ways to deal with traffic. If those people are turning on Pinecroft because they're wanting to go to the medical offices or hospital or areas like that, keep them on the feeder road, have them turn in a different spot. Anyway, throwing that out there as part of this research project, because that's anything we can do to encourage people to find some other way to
but it'll take time, but if you make one movement more difficult, then they're going to find a better way to go.
Right.
Okay.
Does it go to Byron?
Thank you.
Yes, that's now Byron's presentation. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks. While Chris pulls this up, I wanted to put together, just really put down on paper a couple of my thoughts as I previously and currently consider the intersection at Research Forest and Grogan's Mill. And just a disclaimer, these are only my thoughts. They don't necessarily represent any of my other members' views, although I suspect some of them do. Current conditions, these are all things that we all know. There's increasing traffic. There is good and bad that comes with that. Increased traffic means there's increased sales tax. Our community enjoys a very low tax rate. And the increased sales tax allowed us to provide free trash service starting last year, plus a number of other benefits that our community gets from that. But there's a lot of nuisance, quality of life issues that come with increased traffic as well. I get it. I drive through the traffic every day, just like all of us. The intersection is a bad intersection right now. It's not even just one intersection, actually 4 intersections, and it's going to get worse. That's kind of, this slide is meant to represent the fact pattern as we stand today. It is one of the most dangerous intersections in this region. It is outside of Shenandoah's jurisdiction, so we don't have say over it. It does appear to be a priority improvement for the agencies who actually control this intersection. That includes the county, and most importantly, the road utility district, because they're the ones with the dollars that are looking to improve this. And then it also includes the township. The township doesn't have much of a say at this point, but it appears they are quickly moving towards incorporation. And once they incorporate, they will have control of the roads. And so that introduces a third partner that if we're not working with them, it puts Shenandoah at risk. These are the possible alternatives. The mayor mentioned many of them. It lists some of in the results column, some of the detrimental things that I think each of these would have to our community. Certainly, I would like to see the at-grade widening. That would be my number one choice for Shenandoah. I'm going to try to go quickly. Several of these alternatives were actually removed from consideration from the people who actually controlled the intersection. So this has been through a number of long negotiation the mayor's done on our behalf with these other entities. In the end, they're not willing to do the no-build intersection. They're not willing to do the at-grade widening. They're not willing to do the roundabout and some of the other more difficult to explain improvements that the mayor mentioned earlier. So in my mind, our dilemma becomes, how do we ensure the least impact happens to this community with the remaining alternatives? So how do we choose the least bad option? And it's unfortunate that we're there, but that's where I believe we are. I think that the Research Forest overpass would be detrimental to our community. It would hurt our businesses. It would provide noise pollution. It would magnify quality of life issues in this community. The Grogan's Mill overpass or underpass, where it's a direct pass through for north and southbound traffic, would also be detrimental, more so than the Research Forest overpass. That would create, and there's some other projects that if you string them together, the mayor mentioned 2 of them, but there's actually 1 or 2 more, that if you string them together, it becomes a freeway basically right behind our residential communities and our residents' backyards. Flyovers, doing direct connectors, I mean, that would, and talk about noise, talk about site issues, it would be bad. And the Research Forest underpass. So I believe, and for further reasons I'm going to explain here, I believe the Research Forest underpass is the least bad option for Shenandoah. And so when I look at that dilemma, I look at, we have 3 options. We can oppose the project, we can be silent, or we can support it. I believe that the project will likely be funded, whether or not we support the project, or whether or not we're silent, or whether we are opposed. I think the fact that it's outside of our jurisdiction, I think the likely scenario is that HJC would go ahead and fund this project, given the other communities who are supporting it. So if the project's funded and we've opposed it or we're silent, we don't have a seat at the table. And there's risks associated with this underpass that I think are important for us to mitigate. I'll talk about those in a little bit. So I think it's important that we have the seat at the table. That's why I think it's important that we support the project. If the project isn't funded, then again, we don't have a seat at the table for the possible alternatives. I think that we are in grave danger of a Grogan's Mill grade separation, north-south thoroughfare in our residential backyards. I think that would be a detriment to our community. If we don't have a seat at the table, we are not doing our residents, we're not performing the job the residents have elected us to do. So given that, we need to be able to mitigate the risks. It's imperative that we take this least bad option and we mitigate the risks to our community. Some of the risks include roadway flooding and the impact to Grogan's Mill, the impact to Grogan's Mill Road being the greatest risk that we have. So I want to talk about the impact. There are 3 projects in the South County Mobility Plan that when you string these projects together, especially with a intersection improvement at Grogan's and Research Forest, they become detrimental to our city. Not only the residential communities along Grogan's Mill, more than half, probably close to 75% of our residents go through Wellman Road, go through Grogan's Mill on a daily basis. It's difficult to get out on Grogan's Mill now. If you make Grogan's Mill 4 lanes north of Research Forest, you connect it to Vision Park, you add an overpass at Vision Park, you extend Shenandoah Park Drive all the way to the San Jacinto River, that becomes a thoroughfare through our community. I think it's horrible. We have to stop these projects. Unfortunately, as the mayor said, these projects were actually voted on unanimously by City Council in 2015. Grogan's Mill was voted on by this council, not this council, a previous council, to widen Grogan's Mill to 4 lanes north of Research Forest up to Vision Park. The previous council supported and unanimously supported constructing the overpass at Vision Park and Shenandoah Park Drive. The previous council supported extending Shenandoah Park Drive from David Memorial to the San Jacinto River. These are excerpts directly from the South County Mobility Plan. This combination would be, and I've used this word probably too many times already, but it would be detrimental to us. It would be detrimental to individual residents. It would be detrimental to us as a community for sales tax purposes that the mayor mentioned earlier. And not only were these projects approved in the South County Mobility Plan, these projects actually listed Shenandoah as a responsible entity, where this previous council said, hey, we may contribute some funds. We may contribute some funds to the underpass at Research Forest and Grogan's Mill. We may contribute some funds to the widening of Grogan's Mill. I'm opposed to that. I will do everything I can to keep Grogan's Mill as 2 lanes. So I had hoped that there's been an extreme volume of negativity in this community for several months. I had hoped that we could address these issues without having to call out the vote in 2015. That had been my hope. We're actually working on that, and I'll show that in a minute. There's already a number of steps that are in process to protect our community, protect Grogan's Mill as 2 lanes. Unfortunately, I feel like we've been backed into a corner where we have to basically call out what happened in 2015. Several of the people that are out banging the drum about the underpass today were directly connected to the vote that happened in 2015, where that vote included the approval of this whole string of projects that would be absolutely detrimental to our community and included funding. I think it's absurd. So to further exacerbate the situation, this isn't on the South County Mobility Plan, but the extension of Hardy Toll Road has been discussed for many years and is only a matter of time, I believe. And so when you string these projects together and add the eventual extension of Hardy Toll Road, you know, the nightmare scenario being we have a direct connector from Hardy Toll Road to, you know, Woodlands Parkway 2.0 through Shenandoah, through Grogan's Mill in our backyards, that would be the worst case scenario. And this is the path that this city, you know, in 2015 voted to put us on. So how do we mitigate these risks? I've identified several of them. Not only I, the residents during the town hall meeting identified many of these same risks. So the underpass will be unpassable during extreme storms. It's going to happen. The intersection will include pumps, advanced warning devices, and the at-grade intersection at Research and Grogan's will still exist. So you can still use the option that is there today. How do we mitigate the risks that I've explained along Grogan's Mill? Number one is remove Shenandoah as a possible funding source. And, you know, I'm confident that nobody on this council is going to vote for any of those projects. Two, we need to revise the city's thoroughfare plan. And, you know, also included in the town hall meeting, you know, earlier this month was discussing the revisions to this thoroughfare plan. This the revised thoroughfare plan that we will consider at a future date downgrades the portion of Grogan's Mill that's in our city. We are making a statement to the county and to the surrounding communities that we expect Grogan's Mill to be 2 lanes. We are taking affirmative action to do that. It's already in process. Before this hubbub, I'll move on. We need to remove we are removing the Vision Park and I-45 interchange that will be a direct feeder to Grogan's Mill. So we're working with the county to remove projects from the South County Mobility Plan. That's in process. That was in process before this month, before the town hall meeting. The mayor said that tonight, Commissioner Riley and Commissioner Nowak have verbally supported getting a resolution to say Grogan's Mill belongs as 2 lanes north of Research Forest. Again, the mayor's leadership is protecting our community so that we can protect Grogan's Mill. We need to remove the Vision Park I-45 interchange. We do control that to some degree. I didn't put it on here. We need to also consider removing the Shenandoah Park extension. I think that becomes less detrimental if you cut off that overpass at Vision Park, so there's not a direct feed into Grogan's Mill. And I was shocked. I watched the Commissioners Court meeting on Tuesday. I watched it today on their video process, and I was shocked to hear Commissioner Nowak say in open session that officials from this city lobbied the county to make Grogan's Mill 4 lanes north of Research Forest. I was absolutely shocked that would happen.
A previous council.
A previous council. I don't know who specifically. I think the term he used was either Shenandoah generally or maybe Shenandoah officials. But I'm shocked that these string of projects were approved by a previous council. And we are taking the steps to mitigate these risks and protect this city. So the best way for us to mitigate the risk is to participate in the process. As I said earlier, if we don't have a seat at the table, we don't get to help mitigate these risks. My grandmother taught me that, you know, you can catch a lot more flies with honey than vinegar. And that's what we're doing. That's the purpose of participating with our neighbors. If we go up and bang our fists at the podium at Commissioners Court every 2 weeks, we're not going to get support for the things that we want, including protecting Grogan's Mill. And that's the #1 priority when it comes to these projects. So we are working to remove the detrimental projects from the mobility plan. And then, so if you think about the detrimental projects and then string them together with a north-south thoroughfare where Grogan's Mill can skip under or skip over Research Forest, now you can go from Hardy Toll Road all the way through, all the way past Research Forest without a stop. I also didn't include this, but I'm committed that if any of these projects move forward, that I will be bringing before this council to change Vision Park from 4 lanes to 2 lanes. I believe that we will all work to protect this community and protect Grogan's Mill. So the alternatives are bad. So we took action to protect Grogan's Mill. I know that there's been a lot of false information out there, but the fact of the matter is we are taking affirmative action before this month to protect the city and protect Grogan's Mill. We are revising the thoroughfare plan, and so part of that is participating in the final solution at Grogan's and research. So the mayor mentioned a lot of this earlier, but some of the next steps is whether or not HGOC will fund the project. There will be design reviews. The process is that you submit with a preliminary design, then you get into the final design review. We will have a seat at that table where we get to participate and make sure these mitigating factors are included in the final design. And there will be environmental clearance that generally includes public hearings. So there's still several opportunities for the public to weigh in on this project. And the earliest that construction will be complete is 2021 or 2022. That's all I have. I'll step off my soapbox.
Thank you, Councilman Beavers, for the amount of work that you put into that. Your presentation was much more eloquent than mine.
Do we get to say anything after that? Or?
Do you mind if we put that on the website?
No, you can put it on the website, or people can email me. I'd be happy to share it with anybody.
Let's put it on the website, Kathy, if you don't mind fixing the typo.
Was it still there? I thought I fixed it.
Byron, I wanted to thank you for your presentation. And all I can say is this council got here in the nick of time. Because when it comes to mobility in and around Shenandoah, the previous council sold you guys out in a bad way. So that's all I have to say about that. But if anybody wants to listen to the folks that keep rabble-rousing, the Gene Teagues, the Gary Watts, Jano Houston, any of these folks that were part of voting for that awful plan, I just can't believe that they would sell us out like that. That's all I have to say.
Well, I appreciate everybody's efforts on the presentations. I hope that shed some light. That was the purpose of this agenda item, was to go over the information that was given at the Woodlands Township meeting. The first two presentations were both at the Woodlands Township meeting. Go over what information we have on the Research Forest Underpass as it relates to the South County Mobility Study. Look, I didn't take this job so I could come up here and badmouth anybody. That's not my point. I hate, as y'all know, I didn't do it in either election. I don't even like saying somebody else's name. I just think it's you try to avoid it as much as you can. But when we continually are being called out and there's continual misinformation being fed to the residents, at some point you have to step up and say, okay, here's where we really are. Here's what the situation really is. And if we don't work with the Woodlands, and if we don't work with the county, and if we don't work with TxDOT, at some point we are going to find ourselves in a hazardous situation. And it looks like it's not that far down the road. Thankfully, we have a very good relationship with the Woodlands right now. They're going to be incorporated sooner rather than later, more than likely. And if they do, they take over the roads. And when they take over the roads, then if we're not working with them, it goes back to the old saying that my grandmother used to teach me: if you're not part of the solution, you're what? You're part of the problem. So let's help be part of the solution. And I think this Research Forest Underpass, look, if we're going to be completely honest about it, other than the year or so worth of construction headache that we all hate to drive through, I haven't actually figured out a negative on this. I mean, I know we talk about it a little bit like it's the lesser of all the evils, but the reality of it is when you think about it for a minute, it's like, okay, why exactly is this bad? No, we're not going to increase traffic down Research Forest just because we put an underpass. People aren't going to all of a sudden want to go through 3 lights on Research Forest that didn't previously want to go through them. And if they're going on Grogan's Mill South to get to Hughes Landing, they're still going to have to go the exact same route that they go today, through those lights. So the reality of it is, by moving traffic through that area a little bit quicker will help our residents get in and out of Shenandoah faster. I think that it will alleviate some traffic along Research Forest.
which may make people more likely to travel on Research Forest when they otherwise wouldn't have to. And what I mean by that is, I'm somewhat concerned that we are having businesses go out of business because people don't want to go to Research Forest unless they absolutely have to. Otherwise, you wouldn't see a Culver's go out of business. You wouldn't see a Bob's go out of business. You wouldn't see a drugstore. We've been complaining about needing a grocery store around here forever. We had the next best thing, which was kind of a drugstore convenience store, and it went out of business. Windy City Pizza. I don't know how many businesses have gone out of business up and down Research Forest. And I can tell you why. It's because at lunchtime, if you come off of Grogan's Mill, coming from Hughes Landing, which I've done several times before, and try to get on Research Forest, it can take you 30 minutes to get to I-45. So the reality of it is, if we can alleviate some of that traffic along that road, I think that'll actually help our businesses. And as Byron so aptly stated, we enjoy sales tax in Shenandoah. It helps us with our quality of life and with our low cost of living. I think we need to do everything we can to protect that, secondary to protecting our residents. So I hope you all got some good information out of this. We spent an hour or so on one agenda item, but I think it was needed. It was due.
Time well spent.
It's been time well spent for those people that didn't come tonight. I hope they go on YouTube and go watch, and they can go on the city website, and Kathy will have all of these presentations put up on there. Do we have the South County Mobility Study where it can be put on there as well?
We can.
Yeah, we'll put the South County Mobility Study up there so that people can go read for themselves what it says. None of this was made up. This isn't all political rhetoric. It's in black and white, and sometimes in video, and you can go see for yourself. So, if anybody got anything else?
Yeah, I do, Mayor. I make a motion for a bio break.
That's a good point. We've been at it now for an hour and 15 minutes. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get back started with item 8, and we'll get through business as usual. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Russ.
Okay. We will resume the meeting. Thanks everybody for the quick recess. And we will move right into item 8, which is presentation of a final report regarding a proposed zoning alcohol permit for wine and beer off-premises retailers. This is a presentation only.
Council, this is the Texaco station right up here on the service road. They are changing ownership, and the zoning alcohol permit is permitted when they previously had the same permit with the previous owners. It was recommended unanimously by P&Z to approve. And if you don't know anything about this, they have a new concept they're putting in. It's kind of a nostalgic concept called the filling station, where they will have people come out and put gas in your car like years ago. So it's going to be kind of a neat concept.
That's a full service station,
Yeah.
and they offer air and everything.
Yeah.
Take care
Hence
of
the
it.
name.
Really nice and clean. Visited this morning.
And unless you have any questions, that's the quick summary.
Do we have anybody here from the business?
We don't have a public hearing. It's not required for a ZAP.
No, I know. I just wondered if we had anybody here from the business.
I spoke to one of them today about it. He said he was going to try to come up.
Okay.
He was at P&Z, and there were no
Okay.
questions or opposition.
He's reached out to me a couple of times, but I'm just curious. Okay, so with that, we'll move into item 9, which is discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. And I'm not going to read through it, but it's an ordinance as stated in your agenda packet for the same property.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Brott. I have a second by Councilman Fletcher. Do we have any discussion?
I think the improvements at this station are great.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, I visited there early this morning. Staff's fantastic. It's fully staffed. There's multiple people there. It's bright. It's well lit. I think the changes are very positive. I look forward to him continuing to renovate that area.
I think it'd be a great addition to our city.
I agree, Ted.
So, little fact about these guys, if you don't know who they are, I just happen to know from my other life. These are the guys that owned, or used to own before they sold it, Texas Direct Autos, which was at one time the largest retailer of used cars in the world. So they're pretty financially stable. And I think we'll have a pretty good product once it's all finished.
I mean, they're not going to have video poker in the back?
I'm excited to see what it's. I'm excited to see what it looks like. Okay, so we had a motion, a second, some discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Welcome, Shenandoah. Item 10, discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance by the City of Shenandoah approving the settlement filed in the Entergy Texas Incorporated Rates proceedings initiated on May 15, 2018, as stated in your agenda packet. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Beavers.
Second.
Have a second by Councilman McLeod. Do we have any discussion?
Any input from Bill?
No, it's good. This was a proposed rate increase. Our settlement, when I say ours, it's the city's as our group, was to take that increase, divide it over 4 years, along with some credits that we knew we would have coming. So basically, over the next 4 years, the rates will be virtually flat. I believe there's a penny increase each year. So rather than residents being hit with an increase, a big increase this year and then reductions the next 3, it's leveled out over the next 4 years.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 11, discussion and possible action to adopt the following resolution. Designate a representative and alternative to the Houston-Galveston Area Council 2019 General Assembly.
Council, as stated in your agenda pack, this is something that we do annually. The appointments last year were Councilmember Raymaker, and the alternate was Mayor Wheeler.
I move we adopt the resolution appointing Councilman Raymaker as representative and Mayor Wheeler as the alternate.
I would second that if they're willing.
So I have a motion by Councilman Fletcher. I have a second by Councilman McLeod. The first discussion point would be, Councilman Raymaker, are you okay with that? I'm fine being the alternate because Councilman Raymaker's not ever going to miss. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 12. Discussion and possible action to adopt the following resolution, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, adopting the Montgomery County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Brott.
We have to appoint 2 representatives before we, so we have to appoint a representative to kind of be on the planning section of it, and we have to represent an appointee to be a reviewer of the plan. If you've read the whole hazard mitigation plan, Joseph's already on the planning team, and I'm the plan maintenance team.
So we just have to reappoint y'all.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it's technically a different position, but they align the same. So
Okay, so we need to change the motion to approve
the
reappointing.
plan and appoint Joseph.
Mr. Mayor, I'll amend the motion to
yeah,
reappoint the existing.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Brott to approve the resolution and reappoint the existing representatives. Do I have a second? Is that good enough for Lisa?
Are y'all existing representatives?
Well, Joseph and Lisa were.
Yeah.
Is that fine, Bill? Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Are you okay with that, Lisa?
Yeah, yeah. I just
Okay.
didn't know. I don't know how the wording works when you have to
Okay.
approve a resolution. Sorry.
Was there a second?
Still waiting on a second.
Second. I'll
Got a
second.
second by Councilman McLeod. Do we have any discussion?
So I'd say that this isn't due technically until October 23rd, and it's a really big document. While I have gone through, perused some of it, I would personally like more time and consider putting this to October 8th.
I would be happy tabling it.
Is there a deadline, Lisa?
October 23rd or
Okay, so
26th.
we'll be
23rd.
good. So we'll table it until the next meeting.
Well, right now we have a motion and a second on the.
Well, I'll rescind the motion then.
And I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman McLeod to table, with a second by Councilman Raymaker. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to table carries 5-0. Okay, item 13, discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah amending Division 2, Section 2-285 of the Code of Ordinances, providing for the position of Records Management Officer.
Council, our current Code of Ordinances names the City Secretary specifically as the Records Management Officer. And as you'll see in the revised ordinance, it just states that the Records Management Officer, and that allows for the new position to act in that role.
And we actually already have somebody hired for this position, right?
That's correct,
Yeah.
Ashley Brown. And this ordinance modifies the Code of Ordinances. The next agenda item will appoint her.
Correct. So do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve this ordinance.
I have a motion by Councilman McLeod to approve.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Beavers to approve. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 14, discussion and possible action to adopt the following resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, appointing a Records Management Officer for the City of Shenandoah, Texas.
And as a follow-up, this resolution will name the records clerk as the Records Management Officer. It'll name the position.
So, all right, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilman McLeod. We have a second by Councilman Raymaker.
So question, Bill, in this ordinance, and we don't like having ordinances, this actually lists a person?
No, that's, the ordinance listed.
The resolution lists a person?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the ordinance just our old ordinance appointed the city secretary. And so what we did is change that to a records managed officer, and this resolution will then appoint the person.
So anytime we hire, hopefully Ashley will be with us for 20 years, but if we were to hire someone else at some point,
then we would have another resolution,
okay.
but no necessity to amend the ordinance.
Okay.
Right, it's
All
like
right.
the court clerk and things like that. When
Oh,
we-
okay, I got you. It's in the same, that same realm. Okay.
So my only question would be, and it's probably more for Kathy, potentially Lisa or Jackie, I don't know, but we're appointing now, instead of it just being a records clerk, it's a records management officer. Does that change the pay scale, or does that open up any potential for a problem with the pay scale?
No, not at all. The records clerk is the records management officer for the city.
Okay. So it doesn't affect pay or pay scale at all? Okay. Okay, so we've had a motion and a second. We've had discussion. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 15, which is discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah, amending Section 74-288 regarding charges for recycling for single-family residences.
Reluctantly make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman McLeod to approve. I have a second by Councilman Raymaker. Do we have any discussion?
I do have a question for Bill, maybe. This is there a way we can do this without going through an ordinance every time? This seems like a regular and routine management part of the city that shouldn't require an ordinance.
Unfortunately, if you're going to have penalties for non-payment and things like that, it's got to be done by ordinance.
Is there a way to have a general ordinance and then set the fees in another area so that we can pass, wrap it up, write it once, pass it once, and then, let Joseph or Public Works maintain the fees, as opposed to literally writing a new ordinance every single time?
I understand. It's a good question. Let me look at that and see if we can do that. Right now,
obviously tonight we got to do this.
The existing ordinance sets the rate, so the only way tonight you can change the rate is by ordinance. But I will look at that.
I'd like to do that as much as possible, clean up our ordinances.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rate adjusts over here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that we can do that. Let me just verify that.
Okay. That'd be, I'd appreciate you looking into that. And Joseph, this increase is part of the contract. It's a regular, it's part of the growing contract.
That's correct. And if you recall, last year we also had solid waste collection. Typically solid waste collection is included in this ordinance, but that has remained unchanged.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. We had discussion. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Move on to item 16, which is discussion and possible action to approve the relocation of CVB funds.
Council, this is a proposed reallocation of some funds that were originally planned for some other projects that ended up not being the right fit for us for various reasons. So CVB is requesting that, and you'll see the breakdown below, that we redirect those funds toward Expedia, and this was also on the recommendation of our consultant, Bill Geist. Because this is a large amount and it is also a reallocation of budgeted funds, we brought this to council.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the reallocation.
Second.
39,000 to Expedia.
So I have a motion by Councilman McLeod to approve. I have a second by Councilman Rainmaker. Do we have any discussion?
Yes. Debbie and Kathy, I would like to see a report, results that come about this project that we're doing. So
you took the words right out of my mouth. Because I can't believe that for some reason or other Hotels.com isn't performing. I don't know about Charlie, but I use Hotels.com.
Well, Expedia is the parent company.
Yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's like all real estate companies.
But I'm going to trust the experts as long as we can see the data down the road.
We'll get that information for you.
So a question that I have is that what projects is this actually replacing? What fell through?
We had 3 different projects that we had looked at and got into and realized that they weren't a fit. One was some newspaper advertising, one was Biz Journal, and then we had, what was the third? I can't think of the third one, Councilman. But they were all things that we thought were going to work, and once we got into them, we couldn't make a connection and get them to go the way we needed them to go.
So my other question would be, I know we're in the midst of looking to hire a new director for the CVB. How critical is it that we move these funds at this point without considering that as part of their budget in making improvements? Because I know that's really what we're trying to look at that individual for. Do we want to allocate and spend that money now, or do we just want to rebudget that money?
This is just to clarify, this is in the current year budget, not the October 1 new budget. So this is excess funds now.
So we're going to be spending this before October 1st?
We are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's what I was about to say. So we will have a new CVB director. So.
That would be the third question.
And I'll be giving you an update on the CVB director too.
Okay.
And it's much like what we're already doing now. They're just targeting some areas that we hadn't looked at. So it's not anything majorly different than what we're doing now, just some areas of addition.
It looks like more digital, right? Is where the focus
Well, it's
is.
almost all digital,
good.
but what we're
Yeah.
doing is they looked at our biggest airlines and road trip people being brought in, and so they gave us about 10 more marketing areas, such as Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago. So we've got several new places to see. It's a 3-month project, so it'll give us an idea of some other areas that we might want to target.
Good. No, I like that. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 17, discussion and possible action to approve the Civic Club bylaws. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Broad. I have a second by Councilman Fletcher. Do we have any discussion?
I have 2 items on here. Under section 2.10, it states any voting member that misses 3 consecutive meetings will cease to be a voting member until the right is reinstated. I would like to see that say misses 3 consecutive regular meetings instead of special meetings.
Just to clarify that.
Yeah.
It's a good point, in case a special meeting was called. Does that seem like a reasonable request?
Absolutely.
And then 3.04, I don't think that city council should be removing voting members if they meet the requirements.
Well, we questioned that, and Bill, you had
Yeah.
you had direct reason for that being there.
Right. If at some point, if there ever is a major dispute, who's going to solve it?
I would like leaving it there as long as the Civic Club is an arm or a wing of the city. The city council needs to have oversight.
And that we do. It says, towards the front that we have oversight, and that basically any decision comes down to city council anyways if we disagree. Maybe removing voting members by a 2/3 majority of voting members.
It doesn't matter to me at all. These bylaws were put together really with the help of the Civic Club, and most of the things that are in here were their suggestions. I put them in legal terminology. That 3.04 is definitely one that I said, again, in the event of just a major dispute, which I hope we never have, someone's going to have to make a decision. And so how you elect to handle that, I don't really care. Do whatever city council wants to do.
Yeah, it's really easy for me to look in the crystal ball and see lots of abuse at that with 3.04. But
We make it a separate entity, we don't worry about it.
it's beyond the scope.
Well, I guess we could put with cause or something of that nature. I mean, I see
It
what
says-
you're
it
saying.
says with cause.
I mean, it's going to have to be an agenda item, right, before anything could happen.
Correct.
There'll be a lot of discussion before it takes place and a lot of fact-finding.
It does.
That's true.
I'm reading it wrong.
That's true.
I mean, it's not, yeah. It's going to be, it's got to have to be in public.
Definitely.
I will say on this, I mean, right on this page we're staring at, there's formatting issues and numbering issues that I'd like to see cleaned up. You got 2.13, so you skip 3.03.
Yeah, okay.
If we could, you know. I mean, the guts of it I like. I think it's.
Well, I think we eliminated it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what happened, you know. The guts of it I like, and I think it's good.
It's civic clubs all on board?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've had several meetings and a lot of discussion from a lot of people. And the biggest thing that the voting members, that they all have a voice. They don't feel like that it's being run by a select few or a board or what have you. It gives those that want to help and volunteer more voice, and that's the biggest thing that they would like to get more people, more volunteers to bring the civic club back to fruition.
One thing that I mentioned to Councilman Broad, and I know has been mentioned to the active members of the civic club who participated, is we said, this is the best idea we have now. Let's operate under this or whatever changes that City Council wants, but for a period of time, 6 months, 9 months. And if there are parts of it that aren't working, then we're going to come back and amend those parts.
Absolutely, we'll revisit it, and they know that.
Right.
So some questions about the officers and how they're elected. And you're talking about bringing the list of officers before September 30th, but they're going to start office October 1st.
Well, that's not going to happen. They did not at the last meeting vote these people in. They wanted to postpone it until they had the bylaws, so it was a catch-22.
I just meant, I mean, I understand this year we're...
Right.
But going forward, if we don't get it till September 30th, and we're supposed to approve it, and they're supposed to take office October 1st.
We're just going to do it at the first meeting.
Okay.
Is our intention. Because they meet on Tuesday, we meet on Wednesday, so we'll have it bing bang in 2 days.
Then my other question with that is, how will those officers be participating in the budget action for the coming year?
We didn't discuss that. I have no idea. I mean,
but from a calendar perspective, that's my because does everybody see what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, so
they'd live with the old budget. Some of that.
But so the old
actually,
officers are going to basically propose the budget for the coming year. They're going to potentially leave office. The new officers coming in will be basically handed, here's your budget.
That's
set
correct.
the plan.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody got that. That's what's going to happen.
Basically, the Debbie is what's the phrase?
Liaison.
Ex facto, non-ex.
Yeah.
Ex officio, yeah.
Ex officio officer, and Debbie basically presents the budget.
Okay.
Brings it back to the city.
Mr. McLeod, most of the members helped work on that budget. We gave them the raw bones of it, and they told me what they wanted to keep, what they didn't want to keep, and we kept back. I think we did 3 months where we went back and forth with the budget. So everybody got to participate, not just officers.
Gotcha. All right.
And actually, one of the changes that happened regarding that in specific was we now keep a binder on every event that identifies what's purchased. Everything's broken down, so that way as we move forward, we have all the numbers.
Pass it off.
It all comes right back in, has all the notes of the event, and makes planning a lot easier.
Fantastic.
But for right now, like Bill said, this is a living document, and we're gonna grow and work with what we can and change what needs to be changed.
Well, I'm all for it. If the civic club's for it, let's move forward.
That was a good question.
So I have a motion by Councilman Brock, I have a second by Councilman Fletcher. We had some discussion in there, and it seems like the only one that really stuck was changing the language in 2.10 to regular meetings, adding the word regular so that we don't have special meetings.
I will amend the motion to include that change.
Okay.
And I will second.
Great. Do we have any more discussion?
I think it's a great step forward, despite how I'm about to vote. So, I would like to see a change in 3.04, but.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. All right, item 18, discussion and possible action to award a bid for the 2018 reforestation project.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Councilman McLeod, I have a second by Councilman Beavers. Do we have any discussion? I guess my only question would be, and I know Kenny prepared this, so I feel like this was more of a Joseph question. How is it that Lane Care is so far out around when that's kind of like those are our guys, and you know.
So the answer to that is they're more focused on maintenance, maintaining the landscape rather than doing new installation, which also speaks for the under budgeted price that we received from Classic Irrigation Landscape, because that's their forte. They've got the equipment, they've got the spade diggers to get the larger trees that we were looking for that immediate impact in our parks.
Okay, it's just, I sure would have liked to have kept it with the one single provider that we're already using, and are they, we'll talk about that in council inquiry.
They get to keep them all alive. Let's put that.
Yeah.
There's a warranty, right?
Yes, there is.
Okay, any more discussion?
I think it was great that we actually had quite a few people that actually bid on the project.
I agree with that.
Rather than just seeing one come into play, there's multiples coming into play. So I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay.
What are we doing? So we're going to end up with some money left over, right?
That's right. There's probably already going to be some immediate change orders just because there's the design that Landology put together. Some of the existing trees on their plans are not existing anymore. So we looked to add some trees to where we had to remove some due to disease.
Okay.
I would expect that we would maybe see some additional change orders as we get close to closing out the project to spend these funds that developers have given us to plant trees.
That's where I was headed. Yeah.
well, we can't use them all, unfortunately, because
it's been 4 years.
We can't change the scope of this bid too much. We can't go over that 25% threshold. So,
okay.
Some of these might.
But there are plans in the future for future plantings that and right-of-ways and parks.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you, Kenny.
Motion carries 5-0. Good job, Kenny. Item 19, discussion and possible action to adopt an investment policy. Is this you, Lisa?
Yes. So, Mayor and Council, it's the investment policy didn't change at all this year. And it's the same that it's been for, I think, the past 10 years. It's broken down, and it has investments broken into 3 types: money market accounts, COs, and our local government investment pool, tax pool. And that's pretty much it.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Beavers.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Rainmaker. Do we have any discussion?
So the document drafted by the previous committee to be very restrictive and limit investments. The committee did not believe it was ethical to invest the taxpayers' dollars in anything other than what the current policy allows.
So these these are your lowest risk investments.
So the lowest risk and the lowest yield as well.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the whole market.
So it's very conservative.
If anyone has any suggestions, I'm more than happy to work on this year. You can email me, or and I can tell you if it's feasible.
I was going to
per
say,
the Pesiga.
you'd be surprised how many of the things that you're thinking of that I've already asked, and you get shot down, so it's like, okay. It's a pretty conservative profile.
I just brought the point up.
And if I could add, we are on a deadline to adopt this policy every year, so we're right up against that deadline. I know there's been discussion in the past about looking at this a little further, so we do have the coming year to take a look at it for next year, if council's interested.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Do you have a motion?
I give a motion in a second.
Byron and then
That's right.
Ron.
Do I have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 20, discussion and possible action to approve changes to the record ordinance.
I move to table. I would like more time to review this and bring it back on.
I'll second that.
Can we get Chief's comments?
Yeah,
I'm just about to say, so I have a motion by Councilman Beavers, I have a
Okay.
second by Councilman Broad. We have a discussion. My first question is going to be, Chief, what are your thoughts on this?
What we did is we tried to take the city secretary out of it from the old policy because she wasn't part of it. We have over 60 records that we permit each year. And what we're trying to do is cut down our records on each record call scene. So what we're trying to do is cut those back so the scenes are a little bit safer on the freeways and on the feeder roads and everywhere we go, for the visitors and for the residents.
So by increasing the fee,
Well,
I think it'll
I haven't
decrease
got
the
to the
number.
fees yet. We're way behind on the fees. The counties are up to $250 on their record fees, and we're still way behind them on those. We're at $175 is what we increased ours to, and we increased our fee a little bit more on them coming in. So we raised our record fee up to $175 and $150, and we're still way below everybody else.
Chief, what's the market rate?
Excuse me?
What's the market rate for these fees?
Well, the county sets it.
Okay.
So the county is the
market
going rate.
Okay, so we're under the county rate.
Yes. Yes, and right now we're at 125. So when you get a record call, and the county has a record call going, you know where all the records are going to go. They're going to go to the county's motor vehicle accident.
I've heard that before during ride-alongs, that was.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's where we run into a problem. So we have officers that are a motor vehicle accident on the side of the freeway waiting for records that will clear a county record long before they'll come to ours.
So if we brought this up in 2 weeks, would that?
That's fine. I mean, it's been like this for 15 years. Another 2 weeks.
Well, that gives you a chance to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, Chief. I support it. I'd just like a little bit more time to fully digest it.
We've been working on it for quite a while. It just needs to be updated and get us.
Last time I had car total was $60, so I just. I thought that was high.
No, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, y'all just let me know and we can discuss it.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, so we have a motion to table and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion to table carries 5-0. Two tabled items. Item 21, discussion and possible action to designate the Shenandoah Land Trust parcels and the acreage at Holly Hill as parks within the city.
So before I make a motion, the potential resolution or ordinance is not included. Would this be a potential motion to bring an ordinance back in the future?
Yes. Yeah, the idea, and it's really Councilman McLeod's, but the thought was to go ahead and officially designate park areas. So especially if we do it by ordinance, then it's easy for any member of the public to immediately see that these are dedicated parklands. I think it's equally enforceable by resolution. It's just easier for the public to find ordinances a little bit than it is resolutions.
What would be defined, what do you anticipate would be defined as parks?
That would be up to city council, but right now, I would go, if I were passing an ordinance today, I would designate the toddler park, our main park. I would probably include the swimming pool,
and the parking area around it.
The two areas that we call Shenandoah Land Trust, they're actually not in the land trust. Those two, and then there is an area that is west or behind what was Mr. Casimiro's house. That's what, 6 acres or something like that. The Holly Hill. I'm sorry.
That's about 6 acres, yeah.
Right. That's the ones that immediately come to mind, just thinking off the top of my head.
What about the one right here on in our backyard, our parking lot right here? Is that part of the city?
Is that city property?
Yeah, that's city
property.
Okay. Talking about the
workout.
Most of it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I would dedicate. I would.
Yeah, but that's it. And then, so like I say, I don't want to speak for Councilman McLeod. He certainly can speak on this, but that was the thought, is everyone in the public could easily go to one site and see everything that is designated, and it provides a degree of permanence. Those are parks today, and they're going to be parks in the future.
So this is not putting land into the land trust.
No.
It is taking the previously thought to be land trust tracts, as well as others, and designating them as parks by resolution or ordinance.
Correct. And my suggestion would be ordinance.
Okay. Well, in that case, I would like to move that we bring another, I don't even know if we need to, but we bring an ordinance back to do such.
Well, we need to.
So I think it's a discussion only, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Well, on here it's a discussion, but
it's on the official agenda. It's possible. I would agree with Byron and second that we bring it back as ordinance. And I appreciate Ted. I'd totally forgotten about this space right behind here, also designated.
Yeah, I'd also like to include the detention pond on David Memorial.
So I didn't include that because I don't know what NBD and what the plans were there. But if you guys feel like that's going to be park areas,
I think it's going to be a park.
Then I mean, I'm all for it.
I believe that
I'm all for preserving green space.
I believe that we can designate that, and it would have no effect on the detention pond aspect. I think what Councilman Beavers is saying is we would designate the area around the detention.
Yeah, just include make the park definition, be able to include a water feature. I mean, we're going to have to do it for this park back here.
Yeah.
Because it's a detention pond / water feature. So it would be equally applicable.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, that's just again to create some permanence. Past councils kind of sold off a bunch of our green space, a bunch of our land, sold our birthright for a bowl of soup, and I would like to prevent that from happening again.
So, according to the agenda, it's actually discussion and possible action to designate these 3 particular parcels. So do I have a motion? Does anybody want to designate these 3 particular parcels?
Well, he's going to write up the ordinance.
It would be my preference, if it's all right with City Council, to do it by ordinance and go ahead and designate all of the areas that in one ordinance that you've identified.
Okay. So I should remove my motion and then we'll bring it back October 8th. I will do such.
So then there's no motion, the agenda, the item dies for lack of motion.
There you go.
Okay, so then we move to item 22, which is discussion regarding the city's opposition to the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District's proposed adoption of a management plan.
Yes, Mayor, Council, just a quick background on this. So this is regarding a request that the city made to Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District regarding their proposed adoption of the groundwater management plan. So the groundwater management plan was released for public review on September 7th. And just based on that timeline, the release on September 7th, and then they were going to propose adoption of it September 18th, which is why you're seeing it now, because there wasn't time between when it was released for the public review and from the time they were adopting it to get it before council for review. So the city, actually, Kenny attended the meeting on the 18th and read a letter which we consulted with McGinnis Lockridge, with Russ Johnson, and the city attorney to prepare a letter basically requesting the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District Board to table the adoption of the plan for two primary reasons. The first one being there wasn't adequate time for the city to review it. There literally was not enough time to get it to a regular council meeting. And the second was there was concerns that it looked as if the adoption was being rushed before the new elected board was going to take their seats in November.
And what did they do?
So they adopted a resolution to submit it to the state for review without adopting the plan. And John Blau can, if he could add to that. I mean, I may have already said it. That's basically what happened.
Paging.
Thank you, Joseph. The good news is that the groundwater district did not adopt an updated management plan. And most of what you said was correct. There was one correction. The original adoption date was going to be September 11th. The district did receive a lot of comments and some objections. Most of them were objections. Partly for that reason, and also partly because of the new board that will be elected at the general election on November 6th. So the current board, really we have 2 more meetings. I think you all know that I'm on the board, right? And so because of your letter and other comments that the district got, the board voted on the 18th. We delayed a vote for a week to give people more time to review the management plan. The vote on the 18th was just to send the plan to the Texas Water Development Board with no adoption. It's a draft. The thinking there is the new board is not going to have time to adopt a new plan or an updated plan. Because of the milestone dates that the Water Development Board gives the district, the September 18th date was actually a deadline to adopt the plan and the resolution. And so I contacted the Water Development Board. They assured me that we weren't going to be arrested or anything if we didn't adopt a plan. So the action that was taken was just to submit a draft to the state. Comments can still be received. The plan is a draft. The new board will have to take action to either adopt the draft as it is now or amend it. And all of that wording is in the resolution. All of that's in your packet, I know, including the plan. So this is something that's mandated by the Water Development Board every 5 years that groundwater districts have to do. So it's kind of a catch-22 because of the timing, but I think the outcome was the best outcome. So that's the short story. It could be much longer, but if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Anybody got any questions? Thank you for providing that insight for us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
So I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
So I think it's a very positive step for the community that this board is changing to an elected board. And I'd also like to thank John for your service to the county. I know you specifically represent Conroe, but we certainly feel represented with you as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your service on that board.
I second that. Anybody got anything else? And I appreciate staff's work on this. I know I got a couple phone calls on it there at the witching hour because it was all coming together really fast. And I appreciate y'all scrambling to take care of us. and go represent us. So thank you. Thank you, Kenny, for going up and speaking. Okay, let's move to item 23. Ratify the accounts payable for the month of August 2018.
I move we ratify the accounts payable.
I have a motion by Councilman Brought. Second. I have a second by Councilman Raymaker. Do we have a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Move to city administrators updates.
I have a few, Council. First of all, just to recap the gas leak that occurred Monday evening at the Vision Park roundabout. That was caused by a boring contractor working for Crown Castle to install the network nodes that you see going up around the city. They cut a gas line that was not marked in the 811 location. So as soon as it happened, the police closed the roads and monitored the leak with the help of Woodlands Fire, and it was repaired right about around midnight. So unfortunately, there was misinformation out there that it was caused by TACUS. It was not. It was directly related to the network nodes that are going in, and they were boring to install poles. Secondly, I mentioned an update on the CVB director earlier. We have passed the 14-day minimum posting, so we're now going to start vetting those applicants. We've gotten several resumes. I want to say maybe 8. Some of them are really, really strong, so we're going to start going through those immediately and setting up interviews. Quick update on the lights at the tennis and basketball courts in the parks. I know we've talked about this a couple times already. Joseph has been getting some bids to repair those. We're waiting on one more bid. And as soon as we have those bids, we'll take the next step. One thing that we are going to change is there's not going to be that push button feature anymore to turn the lights on for 30 more minutes. It's going to be a set time period, and which will also minimize some of the dark areas in the park that the residents have talked about. So we'll keep you up to date on that. A couple of police updates. There was a recent auto theft at Memorial Hermann Hospital, and our police department was able to provide fingerprint information that led to an arrest warrant. So that's a great job on the police department's part. Secondly, a major theft ring involving our Home Depot store. Police identified a third suspect, and a warrant is now pending. So the police department is making some good progress. A couple of just routine reminders. First of all, the next council meeting will be October 8th, rescheduled due to the TML conference. Just a reminder to everybody. And finally, I had an opportunity to attend the UZA Mobility Committee meeting week before last. And in the process of looking into that for our own budget work, I think I opened a can of worms with the surrounding cities and agencies because they were all in the same boat. They budgeted funds, but they weren't getting any invoices. It went on for several years that way. So they're all now looking for more detail on this program. So I was going to ask council if you have any interest in inviting some people from the Senior Rides program to just give you some additional insight into the program, answer any questions, or if you feel like you're fully informed, maybe you don't need that. It's just a suggestion.
I don't see how that could hurt.
Yeah, okay. That's a good idea.
Okay, I'll set up a quick presentation over the next month or so.
And particularly how our residents are using the program, and that's really specifically what I'm a resident.
I learned a lot in the meeting about the program myself, and one of the things that was mentioned is for the size and population of our city, we are a heavy user. So we have a lot of seniors that are taking advantage of the program. So.
It'd be nice if we could see some good data before that, so
Okay.
we could be prepared to ask questions.
I'll get some.
And I think it'd probably be good for our community to have it on YouTube where they can see how they can more fully utilize that service.
And I believe that their reports come out quarterly because that's when the meetings take place, and it accepts those reports. So I'll see what we can get as of right now.
That'd be great.
And that's all I have, unless you have any questions about the departmental reports or any of these updates.
I have a couple, if that's right, Mayor.
Why don't we wait till we get to council inquiries?
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll go to first item 25, which is Citizens Forum. And Mr. Walter Boyd is signed up to speak. And keep in mind that you're invited to speak for 3 minutes on agenda or non-agenda items. We are listening to your comments. We just aren't able to deliberate with you.
Oh, come on and do it anyway. Listen, my name is Walter Boyd. My address is, I don't know, Huntsville, Texas, Andalusia, Alabama, and Days Inn here. And talking about the cops, man, I was over there in Days Inn for a week, and boy, those cops came over there on what they thought might be a sex ring. And but I wasn't part of it. Do y'all know remember that one? But being a lawyer, I had to get into it because I'd met this woman, and so I go up there, and the cops come and surround the house, and then the detectives come, and so I'd already talked to her, and I just went up there and tried to get in. You can't come in here. I said, I'm a lawyer. She may want to talk to me. Well, she didn't want to talk to me. I was really anyway. Okay, well, Mayor, I want to just compliment you. I really do. And I know you've been to those meetings over there at Woodlands, but you're calling who makes the motion and who seconds it in the vote. I go to a lot of meetings and for various reasons, and sometimes it's so muddled, and I don't know how they ever determine what the vote was. So I commend you for that. Is that okay if I say something good about you? And I want to, Mr. Devers, Councilman Devers, on your, you made a comment that you thought the Woodlands is on a, I think you said a fast track to corporation. I'm not sure that's true. I've been there. I mean, it may be a slower track, but if Gardy Bunch has just done a great job, I think, of setting out why it should be a fast track. But I'll tell you, I've been through these things too, and you remember at the meeting, were y'all there last night? Anybody there last night at the big meeting at the Marriott? Well, some people get up there and say, well, it's a slow track. We need to slow down. Well, it's been 22 years on this thing. I mean, so anyway, that just, I don't know how it's going to be because you get a lot of citizens at the last minute, oh, how much you going to cost me and this and that. And, of course, they won't know whether to set up a police department, and cops cost a lot of money, don't you? Hey, anyway, I've had more trouble with cops as a criminal defense lawyer than I've had with drug dealers, quite frankly. But anyway, hey. Now, can I, one other thing. I think it's very important that, oh, is that it?
Wrap it up. We'll give you a wrap-up statement. We got a few seconds.
Well, I think it's very important to everybody here, the county judge's race, because that's going to be, and especially important for the Woodlands. And I've asked both of the county judge candidates whether they're for incorporation of the Woodlands. And I think these are two excellent candidates, but I got into it last night, big time, with a lot of gay bashing there at when you drink wine, you get into everything. And I think one of your candidates is gay, and I think he's a tremendous guy. And I think the other one is too.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
So
we appreciate you.
Are you? Well, I'm not going to ask y'all if any of y'all are gay because I don't.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
I think one of those cops may have been. I don't know. Anyway, thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate being here.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you. Thanks for waiting so long.
Okay. Next up is Colette White.
I'm Colette White. I live at 39 South Crescendo Path Place, which is in Dulcimer Woods subdivision right off of Grogan's Mill. I've lived there 12 and a half years. And the one thing that I didn't hear that you need to consider is if you expand Grogan's Mill to 4 lanes, you risk potentially killing a child. I have been at the bus stop for years, bringing my kids out there, and have countless times have taken down the license plate numbers of the cars that blow past the school bus because they don't want to stop. There are and I give it to the bus driver. He's like, "Did you catch it?" And I've called CISD. I said, "Come out there. You can catch somebody once a week." And I never saw the CISD police out there. And then it got to the point where you had to cross Grogan's Mill and board across by the park. So the bus driver would leave the stop sign up so I can at least cross the street. And I almost got hit several times for people blowing past it. And I'd have to yell at the people, tell them to back up, take a picture of them, then report it. So I don't know if they ever got tickets or not. So you might want to consider that. If you open it up to 4 lanes, you risk all those kids on Grogan's Mill potentially getting hit. The other thing was, I wasn't quite clear when you're talking about the underpass under research, if the 2 lanes that are on Grogan's Mill that currently can turn left going west onto research, if that continues like that, then the accident rate will not go down. Because I believe that's where the accidents come from, is because the person in the left lane decides that they want to go straight and they hit the other car, which runs into the Grogan's Forest sign and tears that down. The other thing is I'm looking forward to Tactus repairing my 20-foot by 9-foot section of green grass that they removed while they installed their fiber cable in August 5 weeks ago. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Okay, and last but definitely not least, Ms. Ritchie.
Oh, my favorite resident.
President. Sorry I'm late. I had a football game and another football game, so I was running late. My name is Ritzy.
Good reason to be late.
And we lost, so it was terrible. My name is Ritzy Fletcher, and I reside at 723 Shenandoah. And I just wanted to come up and just commend each and every one of you, especially our police department. Y'all do a great job. And I get a little upset, you know me, you know how I get like, I gotta be pulled away because I wanna say things to protect people that I love. But I don't want you getting thrown under the bus. You do a fantastic job, and nobody really knows your job, and nobody knows the stress you're under. Nobody knows your family's stress. Nobody knows the things that you guys have to deal with every day. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate you, that you are loved, you are prayed for, and there are a lot more citizens out there who really do care about you and your team. And to councilmen, of course I am very biased and partial, but I really do love the things that you guys do. You have been very, very straightforward. You've treated people extremely fairly. You've been talked down to a lot, like you're little children that don't know what they're doing. But I was told that you are very, very competent, and I'll say that's the truth. Thank you for fighting for our city. Thank you that you are been very clear with everyone and tried to be very, very transparent. You know, like President Trump's new thing is promises kept. And I believe that that's what you're doing, is you're keeping your promises. And to the city employees, you guys are fantastic. You're an excellent bunch of people, and I just want to thank you for working so hard. You've worked more with less and done more, and our president would hire all y'all because you guys have been able to cut the budget, do extra work, and I just want to tell you I appreciate all y'all. And there's a whole heck of a lot of people out there than the few that really do care about each and every one of you. Thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well with that, we will move into council inquiry, and we'll start off with Councilman McLeod.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up something. So most of everybody knows here, I was on council in 2015 and supported the mobility plan that was passed. Thankfully, I'm now working with this council to remedy my previous action. And so all the residents in this city needs to thank the wise actions of this council, specifically Mayor Wheeler for his actions in repairing this most egregious error. In addition, I also want to thank Councilman Beavers for his insight in these matters. Their actions and the actions of my fellow council members have saved this city from certain disaster that was in the previous plan. And thank you again to the mayor for actively working with TxDOT and other community partners on the I-45 and Research Forest and other mobility issues. And I just want to make sure everyone in the community understands, and I think after tonight, I plan to say this without knowing what everybody else is going to say tonight, but this is really an amazing step forward, and this council specifically is working very hard to put residents and residents' needs ahead of everything else. And so I want to congratulate y'all and continue on that. Let us continue on that path. Let us continue on that path. Let us continue on that path.
I'm going to get choked up trying to say this, but that takes a man to make a statement like that. Thank you. Thank you. Councilman Brock?
Well, being in the car business for the last 30 years, I was asked a question today about, actually this week, and I need council's sort of direction that if the police department in the budget has an Impala or a Malibu, would it be, the question I was posed, would it be better to buy a truck? And I said, well, absolutely. Trucks bring rain as far as resale value, and the maintenance on them is probably a lot less than and if they could purchase a truck for the same budgeted amount, would that be acceptable? I don't think the budget, because it said Impala or whatever, that's what they have to buy. That's the question, I thought.
Lisa's just...
I'm just ready if I have a bunch of questions.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the only question obviously would be fuel consumption. But I mean, even if you weigh that in, Charlie's 100% right. Truck's always going to bring more pound for pound than what a car will. You can always sell a truck, right? Especially in Texas. So, I mean, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Excuse me, I'm going to let Lisa jump in here if I'm wrong, but we did budget based on the vehicles that were presented, which were the Impalas. So
if we found a vehicle for the same dollar amount, but it wasn't an Impala, it was a truck, is that acceptable, I guess would be the question.
Well,
go ahead.
in the past, now I don't remember if this council was in
There
we go. We're back up.
We're live.
Chris, we're up.
Is the audio still
So go ahead, Kathy.
Go ahead.
You're recording?
Lisa and I had discussed this, and the amount of money is part of it, but in the past there was a change in a vehicle purchase that didn't go to council. And at that time, I believe Mr. McLeod was on council, wanted to be notified if there was such a change. So we had planned, if that was proposed, to bring that to council. If you all feel differently.
So there would be two agenda
Yeah.
items, an agenda to change the scope of the project, or the purchase, and then the actual purchase agenda.
I think to me it's a simple agenda item, right?
We could put it on one, but we just have to redo the scope.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could
just be an agenda item we vote on and
Right.
move on. Okay.
It may or may not be a change in funding, but it would be a change in a vehicle.
Yeah, I don't see that's a problem. Anything else, Councilman Roth? Okay. Councilman Beavers?
All right, I have a few. Prepare yourself. First off, Ms. White, thank you for your comments. You have my word that I'm going to do everything I can to not have Grover's Mill be 4 lanes. Your comment is excellent about children, one that I should have brought up. A few days ago, I was driving north on Grogan's Mill, and a mother, she drags a trailer on her bike. And she went and parked in the middle of Grogan's Mill, held up her hands on each direction, north and south, and had her children cross. I cross that road with my children, so I'm very sensitive to it, so thank you for your comments. Also, the comments about the 2 left turns. I think that's another important reason that's a detail I have not dove that far into yet. But that's an important reason why we need to have a seat at the table to make sure those types of corrections are made. So I really do appreciate your comments. Lastly, on Takis, if they don't fix your yard, I'll come and fix it myself. So
I'll be there with you.
Well, I was going to bring all of y'all. So.
No, you come fix my yard. I'm not coming.
I'm the supervisor. We can post a quorum notice and y'all can come help.
Yeah.
If they don't, there's a qualifier there.
By the end of the week.
By when?
By the end of the week.
I'm going to be in Midland, so that's going to be a tough one. But so now to the rest of my comments. On the administration department report, I saw that over 60% of our YouTube viewership actually occurs after the meeting, is not live. So having the meeting available, we are providing a great service and a high level of transparency where our residents who can't attend the meeting are able to see the actions that we've taken. So I commend council and staff for that transparency. Second, Joseph, thank you for including the pool counts. Do you think in a future meeting you can include a comparison to prior years?
Can do that.
And this was on my list before Ms. White brought it up. But Kenny, do you keep a running list of resident issues? I'm sure the answer is yes, but if so, I'd maybe like to see an update occasionally so we can see how they're getting repaired over time. I know there's been a lot of rain, so it's been difficult. But
yeah, I don't keep a running list because most of them, we already have a list going, and it's a process. It's not just they damage something today, it gets repaired tomorrow. They usually go through, like where this lady lives, is the reason it's been 5 weeks is they still haven't finished in there installing it, even though it's 3 streets. They've had 3 different pieces of equipment completely break down. It's taken over 2 weeks each time to get it repaired. Then it works a day and it breaks down again. It's frustrating. And then the rain started happening and they're not done.
yeah,
They did go back in and they made it safe. In other words, they tried to level it off and make it as clean as possible without the sod. Then the rain hit. We are going to go out and look again tomorrow on that particular issue because their yard had 3 different chutes take off of it, so they had a lot of damage compared to where it's just usually a little 18 by 18 spot. So there's a lot of different things happening. We had 5 pieces of equipment break down in about 6 weeks.
I understand. I would just like a maybe bi-weekly update on making sure that they're getting addressed because I have had complaints come to me, and we've had this one tonight.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that even like Shenandoah Valley, where we're quote unquote done, every 2 to 3 weeks we're going back through and reviewing everything that was fixed before, and then we go back through again and fix it again. And we're going to be doing this for the next 6 months, 9 months. So it's not just we hit it once and we walk away and our hands off. No, we're going back and still looking for things. And if they call it City Hall, that comes to me. I get the emails, I get the address, I share it with the project manager, and then we go out and review it, and then we either email, call, or knock on the door and take care of it that way.
Okay, thank you.
If I could add also, I've been in touch with Takis, the man on the streets, about this particular address and some other concerns. I also had an opportunity to speak to him yesterday when he was up at City Hall, and I asked him to follow up with Ms. White on her property as well. So I think it's important to give updates and make some contacts who are working to follow up with that.
Okay, thank you. Still got a few more. I want to thank Leslie for updating the sign behind us. I think it looks great. So,
I didn't know that was Leslie.
Yeah, it's our new logo that was adopted 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah.
Finally updated. I would like to thank Commissioner Nowak and Commissioner Riley for their support on helping us with Grogan's Mill. I will do that personally since they aren't here tonight as well, but I think we all should consider that. Metro Park recently received its wetlands permit, so things should start moving quickly from here, so that's really good news for the community. And I'd like to reiterate some of Mike's comments about you, Mayor. I really appreciate your leadership on this. I know that you worked tirelessly to to help this community on this issue specifically and several others. And you're 3 steps ahead in terms of making sure that our community is protected. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
I said finally, I think, but one more.
Finally.
We're coming up on the end of the fiscal year, so I'd like to congratulate staff on a great fiscal year. We appreciate the hard work y'all have done. Y'all have provided a great service to our residents, both in how you present your service and the fiscal responsibility. So thank you.
Well said. Councilman Fletcher?
Just a couple things. I know we're coming into that time of year where we're going to be noticing more streetlights that are not functional. I know our police department does a great job in turning those into to our public works, but just want to address so everybody has a good understanding that the streetlights have been a problem for several years, not just right now, and that they don't even manufacture the streetlights that have been purchased anymore. I know that staff is working on trying to find replacements, and I know you guys do a lot to go out and recharge batteries, replace batteries, just so the lights will work for our community, and I don't think everybody really understands the intricacies of making sure that streetlights are working or in moving that forward. So thank you all for what you do there, and we will continue to try to find acceptable lighting for our community that will hopefully shine brightly for everyone. I also want to, and have in previous meetings, but again, Mayor, thank you for taking the lead on the thoroughfare plan and working with other agencies. The comment was made that you took over the meeting. I didn't see that view at all. I appreciate the fact that you sacrificed the time of your family on such a special occasion to come back to a meeting that you weren't planning to be at, to be able to answer questions, not take over a meeting. And I greatly appreciate your leadership and your above and beyond attitude, not just accepting things the way that they are, but really trying to make changes that will make our city better for all of our residents. So I'm grateful as a resident that we have the leadership in our city that we do. Sometimes it's not easy to be the leader, but I'm appreciative of the sacrifices that everybody makes. Our department heads, our workers, and staff, everybody does a phenomenal job. That's all I really have tonight, actually.
Thank you.
Actually, I had some more, but Byron took my time.
Took more than my fair share.
Well, you gave it to me then.
Councilman
Since mobility is really the topic of the day, then I just had a couple brief ones. Be the third time that I was hoping to see Commissioner Riley tonight so that I could once again request the 3-way stop sign at Wellman and Grogan's Mill, just to keep on showing our commitment to safety.
I spoke to him last night, actually, and he apologized that he wasn't able to be here tonight. But he does hear that concern, and I know he's working on a few things.
And I know that he's chatting with Rich as well. Secondly, for another stop sign, I have gotten some requests about having a stop sign on Twisted Oak at the emergency exit, because I'm hearing comments of cars kind of coming through a little bit too fast. It seemed like it'd be a logical place
City entrance, you mean?
Yeah, the city entrance.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we're going to have emergency vehicles going in and out of there when the ambulances are up. And just to condition people to stop there and to let them slow down. And again, we don't want people just racing through and finding another route to get across to get over to Hughes Landing. Next two are for Chief. If I could get an update on the short-term rental situation.
We ran a report from the last report we gave you, and there was nothing in eGov and we haven't made a call even at the party house that was in question on the last one. So out of the residents that we have marked as short-term rentals, there was nothing additional on there.
Did you keep a count then of how many short-term rentals were available then? Do we have a year-to-date total from your first report?
It was the same.
Same, okay.
Yes, sir.
And then lastly, just a quick LPR update. How's the system working? Any issues?
We got last Thursday, the 4 new cameras were installed on the 2 fixed locations, and the GPS, Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the GPS count has actually been approved, but it's still, and the vehicles and the mobile units are still not performing the way we think they should. So we're in discussion with them about the new antennas for them. Okay. So we're going to get with the county and see what they're using, because they have the same system. But the new cameras are reading great, so we're up and running now. We just need to get the GPS issue rectified.
And then lastly, facetiously, I hope they never get that quiet rail crossing at Tamina, because I'm afraid we'll lose Rich if he ever gets that. So that's the end of my comments. We really appreciate you, Rich.
Thank you. Rich, I got one more. Yeah. Reminder, everyone, deadline to register to vote is October 9th. We do have elections coming up in November, but October 9th is your deadline to get registered if you're not already registered. So, good call.
I actually have one too. We do have for those of you that don't know, there is a blood drive that will be held on the 28th from 1 to 6. It's to honor one of our young residents that it's her 1-year anniversary of being cancer-free. And so that will be held here at City Hall from 1 to 6 this Friday. So if you haven't signed up, you can just show up. There may be a line if you just show up, but if not, you can sign up ahead of time for your spot. And then as Ron was talking, Chief, I have just a follow-up from budget. I know that you were going to try to get a trial, I think it is, for a mounted night vision on a cruiser. How is that coming?
I contacted them. They were supposed to see what they can work out with us, and we're still waiting to hear from them.
That's it.
I hope it was clear. If it wasn't, kind of reiterate it. We actually have spoken to Commissioner Riley and Commissioner Nowak and sent them a letter of resolution supporting keeping Grogan's Mill 2 lanes and never letting it expand to 4 lanes. I was hoping to have that here tonight. They couldn't get it on the agenda in time to vote on it. However, they both yesterday in open session, it's in the minutes, you can go watch it, both supported that resolution of support. My point of bringing that up mostly is to staff. Can we keep communication with those offices to make sure that they get it on the next agenda? Let's get it voted on. Let's get it in writing. And I'd love to be able to bring that back. Will they have a commissioner's court before we have our next council meeting? I don't think they will they?
It'll be the day after.
It'll be the day after, wouldn't it? Because we moved our council meeting. All right, well, we might have to wait 2 council meetings to get that back, but we will get that. We will get that resolution of support keeping Grogan's Mill 2 lanes, because I have 3 small children, and I don't want to see any of my kids trying to high step across a 4-lane Grogan's Mill to get to the park. Yes, ma'am, you are 100% correct. Sales tax up over $1 million for the year, the highest in 6 years. MDD tax, highest in 6 years. Hotel occupancy tax, highest in 6 years. Also drink tax, highest in 6 years. I don't know what that says, but I think despite the fact that we have unfortunately this year lost a couple of businesses that we wish we still had, the city is doing great. We have great partners. We have great businesses. We see them as more than just storefronts. They're part of our community. And I think we need to do as much to protect them as we can, just like what we do for our residents. So it's vital to keep that revenue coming, and they're good partners. So I don't have a whole lot else. Other than that, thank you for everybody for coming, and hope we were able to shed some light tonight. Sorry it was such a long meeting, but I appreciate you being here. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
We'll adjourn the meeting at 9:44 p.m.
Right.